I didn't hear the prayer, but hopefully the person prayed for the presenters, because we're feeling very unexpert-ish. And yet it is an area that is of interest to us. When we started to have these food allergies crop up in our family, we've always tried to work on preparedness, but I started to get really concerned about what, what all that weed was going to get us in an emergency. I could just see my husband laying prostrate, comatose from all the weed I had stored. So I had to start thinking outside the box. And the fact of the matter is, there are many around us these days who struggle with different health issues, especially involving digestion. So I really got going on preparedness and really beefed up all the vegetables that I had, and I got really into ordering Thrive and getting every vegetable, and whether it be freeze-dried or dehydrated. And then I came across a lady she's out of Utah, who's just a health guru who basically had healed herself from a lot of health issues she had. And she herself was into preparedness and kept talking about how those who have prepared, we have to have live food during an emergency. Everything that we more than likely have in our food storage would not be considered live food. So although I felt so great about the amount of fruits and vegetables I had stockpiled, then all of a sudden I started to worry and get concerned, because the fact of the matter is our food has enzymes in it. Live food has enzymes in it that help break down our digestion. Once a food is cooked, once a food is canned, those enzymes are gone. And although in our pancreas and in our digestive system we do make some enzymes, our body does not make all the enzymes we need to break down food. And obviously we know that there's always a master plan, and the Lord knew we were going to be eating these great fresh live foods that would aid in our digestion. So then the quest began: how do I get live food into our diet and into our storage? And so tonight, Jessica and I are going to share a few ways in which we've been able to come up with and start working. And when I say we are such novices, but we've done a little bit and we have a little bit of understanding, and I hope we can share it with you in a way that's helpful and makes sense to you. Okay, so when you think about food, and let's think about a nice fresh peach on this end of a spectrum, and down here at this end of this spectrum, think about a commercially processed peach roll-up, say. Okay, so obviously this is the ideal, and this is the way less than ideal. So as you start looking, the question is, how can I get live food? Well, the fact of the matter is, when food's internal temperature has been taken over, there's a debate, some say 115 or 118, it kills the enzymes, which is the thing that we're trying to preserve. So when you start thinking about the things, so what would be the next thing right here next to this ideal peach that has the least processing? So the way I kind of think about it is, food has been dried for eons. It has been a form of preservation for eons, and usually it was used, the sun was doing it. Well, the sun typically in most places doesn't get over 118 degrees, so certainly the food's internal temperature isn't going to do that. So drying and dehydrating food seemed to be a somewhat ideal way to preserve food and still have live food. So I'm going to hit on that first, and then I'm going to end up talking a little bit about sprouting, which really, I mean, this is live food. This is like having a garden sitting on your kitchen counter. Jessica will hit on fermenting and some other things, but I'll just stay to my area. So I got really excited when I realized, now just so you know, the Thrive dehydrated food we get, the mass-produced dry dehydrated food is, you know, when it's processed, it's heated way beyond. So you cannot count on the fact that that is going to be what you're looking for as far as live food. So the solution is dry your own food. And so really, I've just been working on this over the last couple of months. I shopped for dehydrators. There's tons of them on the market. This is probably a little bit more on the higher end. I just spent a few days at my daughter's house, and it's fantastic. This is called an Excalibur. What in my research before I purchased, they said the best dehydrator, the most ideal processing is when the fan comes from the back. But I have to say, after having, this thing's bulky and this is a little bit loud.
It's very loud. I have that one.
So I started doing it in my kitchen, and then I moved it downstairs to a wet bar because, you know, it takes some time. I just came from visiting my daughter, and she had this Nesco dehydrator, and I just printed off a picture of it. It's about yay big. It sits right on her counter. I was there for 3 days. I could not believe the amount of food. So as she's making dinner, she's just chopping up some extra stuff. She had that thing just going constantly. I could not believe the amount of food that she was turning out of this little machine. There are trays here. This one has 11, and there's, this dehydrator has 9 trays. This one has, I think, 5 or 7. So they're completely, the fan comes from up above, which you hear is a little less than ideal. What I saw coming out of hers, the convenience of having it sit on her kitchen, on her counter, it just looks like another little appliance sitting there. You know, it made me reconsider. I think it's pretty nifty. This is 1/4 the cost of this. 1/4 to 1/3 the cost of this. So even though I didn't hear super positive things when I was doing my research, I really thought this was awesome. Okay, so what can you dehydrate? Pretty much anything. Tonight you're gonna get a little sample of soup. I started with doing apples, and actually Sister Shelley was the one who inspired me to even get this, and so you'll taste some apples tonight. Anything, the sky literally is the limit, and you know, the access that we have to the internet, I mean, it's such an amazing resource. You can go plug in Google dehydrating recipes, and literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds come up. But there's a few important things that you'll see here in your handout. Well, let me back up a little bit. One thing that's nice about dehydrating, this is 15 zucchini right here.
Wow.
So your footprint of food storage is much smaller. Okay, if you're a gardener, I mean, hopefully we're all trying to be a gardener a little bit. I mean, dehydrating is an awesome solution when we have the oodles and oodles of zucchini. I really like the fact, I do lots of soups and stews, so I don't read the soup you'll eat tonight. I made a broth. I threw some of all this in and some lentils and some spices, cooked it for an hour. There wasn't any, it was just, it reconstituted while the soup was cooking. And you'll be the judge of how well you think it tastes. But it's so easy to cook with, is my point. Then the ability to store at room temperature. Now, mainly, I have these lids on, but you can store dehydrated food in anything. A plastic bag. Now, I wouldn't suggest spinach doing a plastic bag because you'll have spinach powder, you know. But sometimes you get a little nervous about all the glass and food storage possibly. Mm-hmm. You can use plastic containers. If you want it to become your long-term food storage, you can use Mylar bags, and there again you see different information, but it will last at least 5 years. There's people that I saw on YouTube that say they're pulling out things they dehydrated 10 and 15 years ago that is perfectly fine. Now, you want to make sure that you completely dehydrate it, you know, and you know, all the water is out, but you know, that influences how long it will store. I already talked about the 115 degrees, and that's kind of the magic. And the thing you should know is on your dehydrator, everything I've been dehydrating, I've dehydrated between the dehydrator, the air in the dehydrator is between 125 and 135. But that, in the very manual from this, that guarantees when you're heating your food, that's what the air is. That's not what the food is getting up to. So, at any rate, so long and slow is the better thing. Let's see here. One thing that's really important. Okay, so one handy little thing I thought I'd show you, and this made getting apples, because I've done oodles and oodles of apples. This is a less than $18 item. So what I did is I ran my apples through this. I hope this will stay. Does anybody have one of these things? Yes. Isn't it the niftiest thing ever? I wouldn't do it if it... Okay, so my apple has just come off of there, peeled, sliced. All I'm going to do is cut this, and I've got my little apple slices. So that is a nifty little thing. That's by Victoro, and there's other ones online. The point is, the more uniform you can be in cutting your food, the better. So that's what this kind of guarantees. All my slices are going to be fairly equal to each other. The other thing that I kept, that I've used is, and you can use whatever you use, but I love this little thing. What's this called again?
Mandolin.
Mandolin. Okay, so that's what I did with a lot as I was doing zucchini and carrots. Now there are people that use their food processor and feel like they get a real even, which it would be probably a lot quicker. But the point is, the more uniform your slicing or your dicing is, the better. For some vegetables, blanching is recommended, and for carrots, for instance. Prior to doing carrots, I blanched it in water for 3 minutes, in boiling water, and then pulled it out. They say that locks in certain nutrients. The other thing is, I did a load of carrots without doing it, and they were white and chalky and not pretty. So, and you'll see in the soup, once they've been cooked up, they resemble what they're supposed to look like pretty good. So that seemed like a great thing. In your handout, I gave the directions for fruit leather. I've made some up today for tasting, and it's not the best, but the flavor's good. The problem is I wanted to do peach, and I only had frozen peaches, so it's not as alive as it should be. and the consistency, but at any rate, we won't, it is what it is. But at least you'll taste, and basically on fruit leather, all you're doing is blending up your fruit, adding a little lemon juice if you wanted. I didn't do it, but you could add a little bit of honey and pouring it on your sheets. So I still had some processing when I left the house. So you can see that it went thin because I think there was just more water content to it from having been frozen. But all you're doing is laying it on sheets and processing. What's that?
Parchment paper?
Yeah, you can, some people use parchment paper. What I would suggest is that you spray a little oil on it and then do it. I kind of learned, I forgot to do it today, and you'll see it back there. There's some there, but it was a little bit more difficult to pull off. But this one, I don't know about other ones, have specific sheets for making fruit leather, so I just haven't purchased those. And then you have the dehydrated soup mix that we'll have a taste of tonight.
Do you have another one of those flyers?
Well, we made 25, so I don't know if there's any left or not.
Well, and
But
we're having problems, the library ran out of paper.
and anybody know where the paper is in this library?
No.
We have hunted high and low for, huh?
It's locked up. You can't
Oh, they
have
locked
access
the
to it.
paper.
Oh, they
I
locked the
I have
paper.
to carry my own paper every time I make
Oh,
any building is that way. They only
shoot.
put this much
Okay.
in the machines and it's locked up.
Well, maybe what we'll do, if you don't get a handout, see me and give me your email, because I have this in a, I can email you.
I take pictures on my phone.
That's what I do. I take pictures of mine so someone can have.
Oh, okay. That's resourceful. Okay. Okay, the other thing I was gonna hit on a little bit is sprouting. So I thought I was being so fancy schmancy and getting this little sprouter. And what I'm finding out is there's a much better way. So let me share with you for a second. Where are my glasses here? Some of the advantages of sprouting.
Well, what's wrong with the way you did? What's wrong with that?
Well, I'll tell you in a minute. There's a better way to get more bulk, and I think they turn out better. So here's some of the reasons to sprout. A Yale University study of grain, seeds, and beans showed that sprouting substantially increased all B vitamins from 20 to 600%. Vitamin E content increases 300% in sprouted after 4 days of sprouting. And that's what I'm about right here. Sprouts contain complete proteins and all other essential dietary nutrients, along with enzymes to help assimilate them. Sprouts are easier to digest. Phytic acid and enzyme inhibitors are neutralized. Sprouting aids in digestibility. Soaking will also help to diminish some of the fat content and will help convert the dense vegetable protein to simpler amino acids for easier digestion. Sprouting inactivates aflatoxins, potent carcinogens found in grains. That's from Nourishing Traditions. This information is from Nourishing Traditions, which is a book Jess may talk to you about. Sprouting is a substitute to gardening. Sprouts are an indoor garden and a powerhouse of nutrition waiting to be unlocked. When disaster situations arise, when planting an indoor garden isn't possible, whether that's because of underground leaks or desperate hungry people stealing from your garden, or because you've had to up and leave your home and are traveling to a safe place, sprouting can be done in your home or on the move and will provide the same type of nutrients, enzymes, and proteins that a garden can provide you. Okay, so the bottom line is, I'm going to show you, I love it going to the younger generations being around my younger generation daughters who figure things out. And then, so I was just up at my daughter's house, and I told you about her drying, and she's big into sprouting. And I realized she was having way more success with her method than I was. And then as I did some follow-up study, this is the ideal method, and it's the cheapest. So, what you're gonna do, now I don't know if you realize you can sprout, I mean the sky is the limit, you know. You can get seeds, you can get them off Amazon, you can get, you know, you can decide what it is you want to sprout. As I started out, just got a variety pack and just, you know, experimented with it. Bottom line is, there are, you know, if it's a seed, it can be sprouted. So, at any rate, you are going to take, let's just do a demonstration here. I am going to sprout in this jar approximately 2 tablespoons of whatever it is you're going to sprout. They actually have sprouting lids, which would be pretty convenient for these jars, or they have little screens. I just don't happen to own one. So at any rate, this is what I'm going to sprout. I am going to fill this jar up with water. Now it's suggested that it be filtered water. I only have sparklets delivered, and I didn't think it was worth, you know, that, so I've just been using my sink water. I'm gonna fill this off, rinse it, dump that water with whatever it is. Okay. I'm going to fill it again, put a lid on, and I'm going to put this 12 hours somewhere, preferably in a closet, a pantry, not direct sunlight.
It's all filled back up again with
It's
water?
filled up with water, and it doesn't have to be filled to the top, but
Okay.
we're just soaking our seeds.
Right.
After 12 hours, and you'll see different timings, some say 6 hours, all agree that 12 hours is the longest you need to sprout anything, even if it's a larger seed. 12 hours later, I come back here, I'm taking this, and I'm dumping the water. Multiple times I read, don't throw this water away, use it to water your garden or whatever, because it's so full of nutrients. I'm gonna dump that and let it drain. From here on out, for the next 3 to 5 days, oh, there goes my rubber band, 2 to 3 times a day, I am going to fill this up with water, shake it up, dump it.
That's what I get.
Okay, this is the trick. You want this somewhat inclined so your seeds are drying out, you know, your sprouts are drying out. So, a couple of places I saw, you know those dish racks that kind of are like a V? So people who are really into it will get one of those, and they'll have all their jars lined up, which I thought was pretty nifty things. Other people just, you don't want it upside down, you want it like that. So they were using bowls, so bowls with like a paper towel to absorb the water. I can tell you right now what my daughter was doing. She was much more prolific than what I have. I mean, this is good, but all her jars were like filled to the brim. And I feel like this doesn't dry out enough. And that is, so I shouldn't have wasted my 15 bucks on this little contraption, because I think this is better. Alrighty, let's see if there's anything
And they're
else.
sprouting that, what, in the next day after you've rinsed it 3 times a day and you put it on the incline, they're already starting?
Really 2 is sufficient. And different people say different things. You know, my daughter has this pull-up bench for in their eating area. She keeps hers in the dark. Hers
dark. Okay.
So
And then how many days can you eat it?
So between 3 and 5 days, it should be ready.
Okay.
And the fact of the matter is, sprouts can be, you know, it's like anything else. There's a learning curve. There's an adjustment to figuring out how you're going to use it. But it can go into green smoothies. It can go on top of your cereal, in your scrambled eggs. It could go in soups. You know, getting those, learning to work with this and getting them into your diet now while you're not in an emergency is all the better. Okay,
So
let's
you
see.
really have to eat it all in 3 to 5 days or else it'll just go
Oh, no,
bad.
no. So once it's ready,
Mhm.
then you'll take off, you know, you're gonna drain this and you're gonna rinse it. At, let's say 5 days, you wanna use your alfalfa sprouts. You're going to take this, dump it just like you would, rinse it, dump it, and then you'll store it in with a solid lid for up to a week. It's good in the fridge. So then it gets transferred to the fridge. And then you can just open up, or, I mean, you can put it in a Ziploc bag if you don't want a bunch of jars in your fridge, or, you know, it's ready to go. Last month, I just have to put a little plug in for this, but not last month, 2 months ago, Vicki Frizzell gave this class based on this book. This is the most phenomenal book. Claudia is the one I referred to who was talking about getting live food into your food storage. I can't say enough about it. It's not a cheap book, so what I've talked about here, she, especially sprouting, she's just a huge fan of sprouting. And so that is a resource. One thing, Food Storage Powerhouse. She has 12 different, what she calls food storage treasures, that if implemented into your food storage, you're gonna be fine even with, you know, if we do have 1,000 pounds of wheat, if we can just get some of these things in.
You put those sprouts into a soup or something, you're gonna go way over 115. Will you destroy the enzymes you're trying to preserve by doing that?
I don't know.
I just thought maybe
It's a
you
good
wanna eat them
point.
as a salad, sort of try to
Yeah.
cook them up and maybe destroy
Yeah.
everything. I don't know.
Yeah,
Sprinkle them after the soup is done.
Done.
And then
On
Ah, that's a good
Yeah.
idea, good idea.
green smoothies are always good.
Okay.
Put them in the sandwich, yeah. So, alrighty, well, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to you, Jessica.
I think where you got it, Debbie.
Somewhere. And go down. Not you. Somewhere. This one is something consistent.
Okay. So there's some handouts going around. We only had enough paper for about 20, so they did say they put it on the Facebook page, or you could take pictures of your neighbors, or you could email us and we can send it to you, so. All right, information. Okay, so it will be such a blessing for us and for our families if in an emergency, kind of like my mom went over, we have food that is alive, that has enzymes, that has probiotics. And that will be healing and nourishing and really boost our immunity during a disaster. One of the first things to start happening is the spread of disease in a disaster, and one of the big ways to combat disease is through live food. So usually when I'm gonna learn a new skill, I do lots of research, lots of reading, and I figure out all the supplies I need, and I make sure I have everything in order before I get going on it. But with fermenting, I had a friend call me and say, okay, come over tomorrow and bring a bunch of vegetables and we're gonna ferment them. I'm like, wait, hold on, I'm not done, I've not done the research I need to do, I haven't figured everything out, I don't know what supplies I need. But I did, so I just bought a bunch of vegetables, cauliflower, onions, cabbage, carrots, all kinds of stuff. I went to her house, and then we got to visiting, and we only had an hour left till she had to go pick her daughter up from school. And I'm like, there's no way, we need a whole day to do this. There's no way this is happening. So she's like, okay, let's do it now. And in 1 hour, we chopped and filled our jars. We each got 15 jars and of all different fermented vegetables. And I just kept thinking, well, this is a good run through. There's no way these are going to be good. These are going to get moldy, There's no way it could be this easy. And all of mine worked. They all were crispy and they all fermented and none of them had mold on them. And it was amazing how quick and easy it was. And so since then, when I did it with her, I did it in just quart mason jars. Since then, I have gotten these canning, these are called Fido jars to do it in. So I don't think the excuse of I don't have time is a good one when it comes to fermenting, because you could have live food for months with an hour or two of work. So that's, that one's not a good excuse. So with fermenting, there's two things that are important: salt and the absence of oxygen. Too much salt and you suppress the good bacteria. Too little salt and you could get mold or yeast. And you need the absence of oxygen. This allows for the development of good lactic acid bacteria. And the more airtight your jar, the less you have to rely on complete immersion, everything under the liquid line, and salt to prevent mold. So that's why I started doing the Fido jars. They're good quality glass. There's no lead in them. They are airtight, but they won't explode. It will, because of the pressure, liquid can get out if it needs to, but, and it's not gonna explode, but it is still airtight. So these are good. We got these at Target. My mom got some online on Target. I got some at Super Target here. And so these are the 1.5 liter and they're about $10. So, and then one thing you can do is kind of like with this has already been fermented. You could ferment it in this and then put it in a more affordable jar, just so you're not using up more of your expensive jars. So this is the 1.5 liter. They recommend either the 1.5 liter or the 3 liter. The 3 liter is wide, where like I did these green beans here. You could do them horizontal, or things like carrot sticks, something like that. You could do in the 3 liter. This is a really good size though, the 1.5 liter, because it will fit in your fridge and for storage it's not too bad. So right here I have sauerkraut, curry cauliflower, and carrots. Right here I have green beans, and then this is one you really can, you want to cut things uniform so they ferment evenly, but you really can throw in whatever you want. In the handout, I have suggestions, but any combination of vegetables, seasonings, really seasonings don't affect it. You can come up with all different combinations that you want to try out. This one, anyone who wants to try it, they can. I've had this in my fridge for a year, and I tried it today, and it's really good. There's no mold, nothing, crisp. Everything in here, I have radishes, cauliflower, onions, carrots. It's still really crispy, and it just tastes healthy. It's good stuff, I can tell. The liquid that you never want to throw away your liquid. It's full of probiotics, and you can use it to make salad dressings. You can also use it, so for something like the carrots or the green beans, I took some tablespoons of the liquid from the sauerkraut and added it just to get it going. Sauerkraut and pickles, they ferment really fast. They have lots of good bacteria that gets the fermenting started. Something like this may need a little help, so you can add some of the liquid from that.
You made a sauerkraut from fresh cabbage. You slice the little pieces and put it in there.
So I'm going to actually show you how to make sauerkraut. Let me see what else I just want to cover before we get to do that.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
This is a real comment. I know there are sports teams that actually drink pickled juice as something that takes care of like cramps, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's...
So maybe there's something more to it than just salty water.
Exactly. There is. So I'm glad you brought that up, because
Nice going. Good job.
when my family started having a lot of health problems, one of the things, especially some of my kids, a lot of digestive issues. and we were told to start taking probiotic pills. And we took that, and they're expensive, and I was giving him a lot of them, and I wasn't noticing much improvement. Once I started the fermenting, and so I do kefir, which we'll talk about, kombucha, fermented veggies, yogurt, their digestion improved, like just, it was really miraculous. Plus the cost to have, 5 people having multiple probiotic pills a day compared to this, pennies for these type of foods. So they did a test. It's really up for debate if any live probiotics even get into your digestive system once you've swallowed them, once they've gone through your body, if really any of them really make it, survive it. They did a test on sauerkraut. 10 trillion, a count of 10 trillion probiotics in 2 tablespoons of sauerkraut, which is pretty amazing. In store-bought yogurt, there would be 2. In
2 trillion.
no. well, they said like something like a Yoplait or something. I don't know for sure, but they just said by the time it's processed, there's very minimal. A lot of times doctors will say like.
Could I just clarify?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the sauerkraut, you've got the trillions. In the yogurt, you've got 2 types.
2 types
Of bacteria.
Yes.
So what my reading is, in a probiotic supplement, you might get between 10 and 20 different probiotic, different bacteria. In the sauerkraut, you might get 200 different types of bacteria.
Yeah, so that's what it is. So the kinds of bacteria, hundreds in the sauerkraut, maybe 2 in like a store-bought yogurt. So one of the reasons to do multiple things is each food has different bacteria in it. We have bacteria that we need to replenish in our gut. And we have hundreds of different bacteria. And so by doing a variety of these, it would be great if you ate sauerkraut every day, but by doing a variety, you're gonna make sure you get all different types of bacteria. So one thing, people have been fermenting forever, up until like the last 100 years or so when commercially produced food started being made. And if you look in those 100 years, some of the health issues that we've started to deal with. And so by eating a traditional American diet, we're feeding a lot of the bad bacteria and we're not replenishing a lot of the good bacteria. So this helps that the good guys start winning. When you're having a lot of inflammation and health problems and autoimmune disease, the bad guys are winning. And one of the ways that they multiply is through sugar. So much of our foods have so much added sugar in them, and that's what the bad bacteria feeds on.
With your kids, did they drink the juices or just eat the foods?
So they drink kefir, they drink kombucha, and they'll eat, I'll give them fermented carrots.
But you don't have them drink that juice, right?
They haven't. I think as I've studied, that would be a good idea.
I put sauerkraut in my smoothie in the morning with blueberries and strawberries. My kids don't even know.
Oh, that's a great idea, yeah.
They don't even know. So they're like,
Yeah.
more smoothie.
But once you start having really negative and life-altering side effects, you're a lot more open to trying things. And so I had one kid that it was hard leaving the house because of digestive issues. And so when they start seeing that healing and that they can live a more normal life, they're really open to it. And so every morning they drink, I'll get to this, but they drink kefir. In the afternoon they drink kombucha. And so we just try to keep replenishing that good bacteria. So, okay, so we talked about the jars. And in this handout there are some recipes. So I'm going to show you real quick how to make 2 types of fermented foods, and then we'll talk about the kefir. So this, I guess the appropriate name is kefir, but in America it seems like a lot of people call it kefir. And this is water kefir, which I feel like in an emergency would probably be the most reasonable to try to be making. Okay, so I have my jar. And you're gonna put so I'm just gonna show you how to make dill carrots. And it literally will take 2 minutes. I'm gonna put 2 tablespoons of dill seed in the bottom. I'm gonna put in some garlic. And we've done like whole jars of fermented garlic that my kids will eat by the mouthful. They love that. My kids for Christmas, they made their dad jars of fermented garlic and jalapenos with different seasonings and flavors, and he really loved that. Okay, so just peel in the garlic. And then put that at the bottom, your seasonings, and your garlic at the bottom. Fill it up with carrots, whatever, a combination of vegetables. You just want to try to have them pretty uniform in size. And you want to leave about an inch or 2 of space at the top for the gases. Then what we need to avoid mold is salt water. And you want to use real salt. You want to use Himalayan sea salt, or this is the Redmond sea salt from Utah. You want to make sure that your salt is real and not just table salt that's stripped of minerals. So for most things, you're going to use about a teaspoon per cup of water. So I have 4 cups of water here, so I'm adding 4 teaspoons. In about a quart jar, you're usually using between 1 and 1.5 tablespoons. There are some things where it might be a little more, but for the most part. When I made all of those jars with my friend, that's what we did. About 1.5 tablespoons per quart jar. Okay. So we're letting the salt just kind of mix in with the water.
Is it just tap water or do you just? filter
No,
it
that's
with
the
water?
thing, and it does say it needs to be filtered. You want it to be chlorine and fluoride free. This is from my Berkey, which I love my Berkey, and I have the fluoride filters in there too. So, and that when I make my kefir or kombucha, the liquid I use in here is from the Berkey. So filtered water, and then you're just pouring in the liquid. At home, I would have probably let this sit a little longer just to really dissolve the salt, but okay. So you still want to make sure it's completely covered by liquid. One trick that you can do is take a cabbage leaf if you want, especially if you're going to try to do it in mason jars. In mason jars, you can get these packs of plastic lids. You probably don't want to use the metal lids, but you can, because these aren't completely airtight, you can use a cabbage leaf to push the food down and just make sure that the water's covering that, just so things don't pop up, because that's when mold can come up, is when they're not completely submerged. This one's been fermenting, I don't worry about it as much, but during the fermenting process, like this, I could add more carrots. I actually am going to add more carrots, but you see how everything is submerged under there.
Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
Does that make very salty vegetables then when you do that?
No, just sour, somewhat sour.
Okay.
But they're good. You can try some. We have sauerkraut, and if you want to try some of these, you can try those too.
I was
But they're
told
actually
that if
delicious.
you use a grape leaf in that it doesn't make the carrots go milky.
You can add some grape leaves, especially with pickles. It keeps them crunchy. So adding grape leaves to the top is a way to keep them crunchy. So the other thing you're going to want to do, so this will ferment for about 2 days before being transferred to the fridge. If you can taste it, you can open it up. You don't want to put hands in it to introduce new bacteria. Just scoop some out, see if it's to your liking, and then you'll refrigerate it. But in the meantime, you want to put it on like a cookie tray or a baking sheet to catch any leakage. The other thing is if you do have one that